With Gladiator II out now in theaters, I recently sat down with Gladiator's Academy Award-winning costume designer, Janty Yates, to take a look back at her work designing armor and costumes for the first film, learn about her work on the sequel, and to discuss her longtime fruitful collaboration with director Ridley Scott.
Janty, thank you so much for coming to talk to me. So lovely to see you.
So lovely to see you again.
Yes, and we have here 25 years of history for you.
I'm kind of embarrassed, I have to say.
How so?
Because David Crossman's concept of the Praetorians is so glorious, so beautiful. He's given you the spiffiest one as well, I see. All the gold.
Oh yeah, it's all highly polished.
Yeah, highly polished gold. But it's so beautiful, it really is. And I mean, I thought we were actually pushing the boat out with the Praetorians anyway, because A, they never wore purple.
They never wore
purple. And it was always just a complete emperor and family outfits.
Right.
Because purple was the most expensive dye.
So purple was the royal color. They wouldn't have
Yes, and we just thought, well, Ridley loved the purple that we found, and so we just made the tunics and the cloaks. But basically, to go onto the concept, it was this photo of a real wonderful, it was obviously a fighter,
Right.
Obviously a general. He had this eagle at the front of his helmet. And Ridley loved the blue, black, green, like a back of a beetle, the feel of this helmet. And I think the people at FB will agree with me. It was quite a hard task. It was we tried a lot. And they come along and they say, how about this? And I go, no, more green, or, more blue. Or
And this
whatever.
is like the specular reflection coming off the helmet, is that right?
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious, when you are starting on a historical epic like this, I think
There's
some
none of it on here, by the way.
I would imagine that obviously it starts with the research, but how much do you modify pieces you've seen for the silhouette? Do you I'm curious how much you take in from history and then how much you take your own stance from that.
Well, Ridley is always one about slender. And so we never went in to the waist quite as much as that.
Yeah.
But we always brought the cuirasses in as tightly as possible.
To create that.
We
line.
had military, on the whole, so they were good bodies.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the bodies that came along with the other legionaries, etc., were not quite as good. But on the whole, they were military, so they were great. But it was also very important to get the pauldrons correct. This is, I think, a very early concept, but this is actually what we made.
Okay.
With different pauldrons, of course.
And are you bringing Ridley both historical reference and drawings and working with him on?
Usually, yes, but leaving it down to a dull raw, just this was fine. He latched onto that. He loved it. So we didn't really need a whole load of others.
Oh, so you got enough of a taste of what he wanted out of him grabbing that.
Absolutely. And then the greaves, my assistant, who's a wonderful designer in her own right, Sammy Sheldon, she was then, she conceived these wonderful crocodile greaves, which
They're gorgeous.
You can only just really see them
They're
here.
lovely. Terry English told me that's the hardest part of armor to make.
Oh, yes, it is.
It is the most, the
It's
helmet
true.
and those.
That's interesting that he should say that.
I'm always talking about, in any aesthetic exercise, there's, for me, always a handle from which I feel like I can grab the thing and sort of shake loose the rest of the decisions. And it sounds like you're working on the same idea here.
Completely, absolutely. And frankly, this was one of many.
Right.
We had the legionaries.
Oh, you had so many different...
we had so many. I had never, ever been anywhere near a war film before.
Right. Oh, wow.
I'd never done fighting. I'd certainly never done armor. And You know, I always sort of left that to the old blokes.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I didn't leave it. I was never asked. So Ridley really threw me in at the deep end with this one. I was completely crikey. Because then, of course, we had Maximus and we had Joachim, we had Commodus. We had to do their designs as well. And it was just endless. And then all the designs of the gladiators, they all had to be individually drawn. And Sammy did all my drawings. She was fantastic and came up with wonderful concepts.
Well, there's so many shots where there's so many bodies on screen in Gladiator. Was there a moment for you when you saw all of your costumes playing out and thought, I can't believe this all kicked into motion a couple of years ago?
To be honest, I felt that at the first battle, which was the Battle of Germania.
Yeah.
And to see all, I mean, I look at the archers now and they're just so ropey. They really are. Just seeing all of them, I thought they were quite good at the time. And then seeing all the legionaries and then all the Germanians who were just basically in rough fur and rough this, that, and the other. But we still had to dress every single one of them. That was when I was just like, my jaw was on my chest. I was just like, Christ on a bike. I can't believe this. I can't believe it. In Malta, it was, well, we sort of went up by degrees because we went then to Morocco, where we shot Russell's first. It was a small ring.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a Colosseum as such, but it was same shape. Mm-hmm. And so we got broken in there. And then we went to the big Colosseum and that. But that's nothing to what's coming out in November.
Well, that's I want to ask,
Blimey.
I know. Tell me what it's like to revisit this world 25 years later.
Do you know, it was glorious. And it was glorious in best part because I had David Crossman and he was so wonderful and he took all the military off my hands. So you think, what was I doing? Just twiddling my thumbs. But no, we had a few civilians as well. But he created the most amazing legionaries, as you can see, glorious Praetorians. And he did all of Paul Mescal's outfits because he was always military. Right. And he did Pedro Pascal's uniforms because he was always military. So he did the two, well, I'd say two of the main characters. There's another one who I did.
Was any part of this movie a chance for you to go back and redo or fix something that you had never been totally satisfied with before?
No, because I was totally satisfied before. Little did I know how poor my attempts were. However, it had been the first sword and sandals since Spartacus, I think. Really? Yeah, I think so. So I was quite pleased with the, basically with the results. Oh. But then we really we've gone all out this time. Yeah. I mean, I'm so thrilled about this one.
I'm so excited. Gladiator is one of my all-time favorite movies. I think I watch it about every 8 months. I swear, I am ludicrous about it. I can't get enough of that film.
I've seen it twice.
Is there anything you want to call out for us when Gladiator II comes out that we should be watching for, take a look for?
Well, I mean, basically, Connie Nielsen is still gloriously wonderful and is back in it in quite a prominent role. Yeah. I think really Denzel is spectacular in this. And he plays, I suppose he plays the same role as Oliver, but he's far more manipulative, far more ambitious, and he obviously is in it a lot more than Oliver was.
Yeah, and Oliver was very avuncular as Proximo.
Exactly. And sadly, he passed on that shoot.
It's a real shame.
Yeah, it really is. So, yes, I mean, I'm kind of proud of our Praetorians because I was so proud of them at the time. However, I bow to Dave.
I feel like at this point in my life, in my late 50s, as a maker, I'm starting to feel connected to the whole of people who have made things. And I'm curious, having spent so much time in the past, if when you go to museums now, you feel that connection to those people making those costumes, those pieces of clothing from the past.
Well, frankly, I don't have your insight to the Met armor department. I have never been into the back stages of their making and their creating, but basically, I love FBFX. I love them. I love the Weta Workshop in New Zealand, and you know they're all such absolute geniuses. Rob Alsop is another one who's just really always there for me.
Just realizing your dreams.
And he made all the original gladiators that Russell fights. They'd make things look authentic. And everybody who comes and looks at them, they tap them. What, that's not metal? And that means so much to me.
Yeah.
That it's your thing.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And it sells to you right up next to it.
Exactly.
No matter how close, it feels like a real thing.
Quite.
I mean, the weathering on the gold here, the little hammering on the edges just feels so completely authentic. How many costumes are in the new film versus the old one? Do you know?
Well, in the old one, we had about 2,000 made for the crowd, because Ridley was very keen on keeping them very Alma Tadema, and Alma Tadema was the most wonderful artist, and he recreated Roman times, but he was alive in late 1800s, and he's mad about the design of Alma Tadema for the extras and for actors. And so we kept it very, very much in those colors.
When you have that many costumes, it's not, you're not designing one costume per person. Are you designing like a system for dressing people?
Back then, yes, we did. We had something like 8 designs, and or 10, let's say it was 10. And we made, 1,000 of them in 5 different colors.
It sounds so tiring.
And well, luckily we had a factory.
Sure.
But his passion was the fact that we'd have these silk, well, I call them sausages, but they were just bands that would go round under the bust. This is for the women, I'm saying. And then fold and go under the hip, around the hip, come back to the groin where they'd be tied and they'd just hang down. So you would have the most wonderful silhouette of just maybe a pale yellow gown and a pale pink silk ribbon, 3 or 4 inches wide, wrapped round.
Janty, thank you so much for walking me through this. I'm so excited to see the new movie, and now it's probably been a few months, so I might be watching Gladiator on my plane flight home.
Oh, well, think of me.
Thank you so much. Oh, I totally will. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to tell you about some brand new merch we have. One of my favorite things we've ever produced are our demerit badges, which are scout badges for messing things up, as we all do. They're bestsellers, and we started out selling them as patches, then we moved to stickers, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we have demerit badge magnets for your fridge or your machines, and we started out with a 4-pack of our greatest hits. You can find these right now at tested-store.com.